Hello, my name's Elena. This is my YouTube channel, still unread, and I wanted to do a list of my favorite books from 2021. This video was everywhere. It was everywhere. So let's get started because I have not 5, not 10, I have 20 books. So I'm going to go through them so quick. Number 1, The Prairie Over the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is an 800-page fantasy. It's got a magical orange tree, a female queen, a cast of queer characters, and talking dragons, which is my favorite book trope. Not my favorite book trope, but definitely something that buttered my buns. 100%. Get me a talking dragon. And it's over. And it's over. You know what I mean? Next, I'm gonna say The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr. This is the most underrated book of all time, if you ask me. I think it's way too underrated. This tells the story of Samuel and Isaiah. Yes, Samuel and Isaiah. Okay, they are 2 enslaved men in the antebellum era of American history down south, and they love each other. They love each other, and this story is told through the circulating perspectives of other people on this plantation. So you kind of get their background and then their perspectives and how they affect Samuel and Isaiah's relationship. On top of that, there's this mythical element of like these gods, like these African gods, helping to push along the story. I mean, it's a story that I don't think we've seen before. I don't know. I think this is incredible. It has a lot of biblical references. Almost all of the chapters are named after like a person or a different section within the Bible. This is incredible. Yes, we too have been punished. We all have, because there are no innocents. Innocence, we have discovered, is the most serious atrocity of all. It is what separates the living from the dead. Let's do Long Way Down, Jason Reynolds. Oh my gosh, this had me crying in public. This is actually the ARC copy, I think. Yeah, it is an ARC copy. How funny. Yes, so this is a novel in verse. A novel in verse. And it is about a boy whose brother is shot. And so there are like these laws of the ghetto where they have to follow if someone you know, a family member, a close friend has been murdered. And so one of those rules is like, no, they have the first 3 here. No crying, no snitching. Number 3, revenge. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to go get revenge for the death of his brother. And so when he gets on the elevator, at each floor is a different spirit that comes to visit him. Very much so like the Christmas Carol. But each victim has died of gun violence or police brutality, and they each sort of tell their story, and our main character talks about how he remembers them. This really like had me sobbing in public. This had me sobbing in public. Next, Outline by Rachel Cusk. Oh my goodness gracious. Was this perfect? Yes, this was perfect. I felt like it was Greece. Athens, yes. A novel told in 10 conversations. And that's literally what it is. It is conversations. And she meets up with like old colleagues, old friends. Narrator, who we never really get to know too much about, is supposed to be like a divorced mother. She has like 3 kids. I wrote notes in it in white ink. So like, it just felt like a secret. It felt like a moment between me and the book, which might seem stupid. One of my favorite conversations was actually with a woman named Elena, which is my name. And she's supposed to be beautiful, and she's a publisher. And I was like, okay, I'm cute, and my dream job was to be a publisher. So I was like, okay, what you're telling me is that Rachel Cusk manifested me. She manifested me into existence. Let's do a book of poetry. I have Black Girl Called Home, Poems by Jasmine Mans. This is maybe one of the best poetry collections I read this year. This one and another one I'll mention. This sort of addresses Jasmine Mann's life, her relationship with her parents, her relationship with other women as a gay woman, as a lesbian, as well as her relationship with the world. Oh, I think it was Kanye. It was a quote. Not a quote. It was an entire poem dedicated to Kanye, kind of calling him out on his bullshit, and she even uses his own lyrics and references a lot of his songs to make the poem, and I loved it. I was like, okay, go off. Yeah, go off. Next, another very recent read that I'll talk about my December wrap-up as well. This is Eileen by Tessa Moshfegh. So this is about a woman who's not particularly special in any way. She's had a kind of a difficult childhood, and she works at this juvenile detention center as like a secretary, and she gets a friend, and she doesn't fall in love with her, but she's just like engulfed in her entire existence, her personality, the way she talks, the way she acts and moves and dresses. And that sort of leads her into doing some illegal activity with this woman. Anyways, I've read all her novels in 2021, and yeah, I think Eileen might be my favorite one, believe it or not. No One Is Talking About This by Patricia Lockwood. So this is supposed to be about, like, in the future, there's this woman, she's a social media star, and everyone is on social media. Absolutely everyone is on social media. And so it's her and, like, her eternal, like, conversations about what social media does, what she does in it. It's just, like, a conversation in her head. It's, like, a really long conversation in her head with all these, like, weird thoughts and interactions with people and other people on social media and what it means and whatever. And you find out eventually that her sister gets pregnant, and it is through her sister's pregnancy and the baby that she sort of, like, reconciles with her own humanity, I guess you can say. This is definitely big brain energy. Something less serious is Grady Hendrix, my best friend's Exorcism. I wanted to read everything by Grady Hendrix this year, but I failed. I didn't get to read the vampire one. What is it? What is it? Oh, what is it? The Vampire Book Club? Yeah, so Grady Hendrix, if you happen to just don't know him, he writes these very kooky horror stories. This is about a girl whose best friend is possessed by a demon. Crazy, goofy stuff. By the way, I love listening to Grady Hendrix audiobooks. It's a fun time. Next, This Is How You Lose a Time War. This is by two authors, Amal El Motar and Max Gladstone. This is fucking incredible. I had the ARC and I didn't even read it before it was published. I'm so upset. This is about two agents from opposing agencies, and the goal of these agencies is to control the timeline. So it's like a multiverse. And so these agents, they are like the top in their field, and they share notes with each other, and it'll be like written in a piece of bark, or they'll see it in the wind, the note, or they'll see it on a rock, or within the veins of a leaf. And it's so stunning like that. It's like such a minute detail. Like, who would think of that? You know what I mean? And these letters are incredible. And the names they call each other are so witty. Look, this is one of my favorite names that I just turned to it. My Dear Mood Indigo. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? My Dear Mood Indigo. And that's to Blue. That's to Agent Blue. Are you trying to make me cry? Are you trying to make me cry? Look, to Red. This is to Agent Red, my careful cardinal. Mother, holy goodness gracious, gosh. Okay. I love this. Very lyrical. Yeah, its prose is just stunning. Very big brained. Next, Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. I actually read this very shortly after Outline by Rachel Cusk. Can you hear my heater? I just realized that my heater is going off. Can you hear it? If you can, oh my goodness. Anyways, This was incredible. Yet another like depressed woman book about a woman whose husband leaves her for a young girl. Oh my goodness, this had me fuming. It had me fuming. I loved this. And she does have to take care of their 2 kids, so it's her trying to like cope with it and being like, no, he still loves me, what did I do wrong? Until it slowly like evolves into her being like, you know what, fuck that bitch, fuck that bitch, who does he think he is, who does he think I am, how dare you. There's this part in the middle, and it's so congested, it is so congested. She's literally stuck in her apartment. She forgets how to turn and open her door and like undo the locks, and so it's just her running laps, not only like in her head but literally in the apartment. Like one of her kids is sick and the other one keeps like holding on to her leg and wants to do everything mommy's doing, but then she's like, I'm a mess, like how can I be a good mom if I'm a mess? And so she tries putting on makeup and stuff like this, and then stuff starts happening with their dog, and it looks like their dog ingested something. And so she's literally doing these laps in her apartment, and it felt intoxicating to read. And I loved it. I loved it. Next I have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm surprised by the amount of people who didn't love this. Oh, okay, so like I said, I haven't read all of her books, but I know what they're about, and I felt like Malibu Rising must have been like an accumulation of all her skills she got from those books and what those plots and synopses are about, and popped them into this, because this is about like a handful of siblings and their beach party, no, their house party that they have. It was so good. I love this. I ate this shit up, dude. You get their perspectives, like each of their perspectives building up to the party, and like what they have to do to prep for it, and intertwined with that is like their history. So you get their parents' history and what happens with their marriage, and like when they're born and how they grow up. And then the second part of the book is the actual party itself and what happens there and the chaos that erupts. In the beginning, she spends like a mini chapter giving you background on the character, like who they are as a person. And she was able to do that within like 1 or 2 pages. And I felt like I knew these people like the back of my hand. Like for them to just make sense, for them to be so grounded in reality, and for me not to be in doubt of any of their actions. Next, Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam. I feel like I'm talking too much. This is about a family. They go on vacation and they rent a house in upstate New York. And then this older couple shows up and they're like, this is our house, something's happening in New York City, would you mind if we stay? And they're like, oh, okay, sure, I guess. And reading this, I thought this was going to be like an at-home invasion story, like The Strangers. I hate that movie, by the way. I hate that movie so much, y'all. But I thought it was going to be like The Strangers, you know what I mean? Or even something like Get Out. Something like that. And it was not that at all. This is such a creepy-ass novel. It gave me heart palpitations the whole time. I kid you not. I had heart palpitations the whole time. Like, I felt like I couldn't breathe by the time I finished this book. Because we never get to find out what happened in New York. We find out that something much larger is happening, and everything that happens there around them in the forest is so inexplicable, and it's just kind of crazy. And even the way it ends, you question like, okay, but what happens now? So yeah, I'm very interested. Like immediately after this came out, Netflix signed a deal, so I'm interested to see how they turn this, like how they adapt it to the screen. That'll be really fun. Next is probably the best book I read this year, Normal People by Sally Rooney. There goes my hater again. I'm sorry. I thought about this book every day, about Connell and Marianne and their relationship from their senior year of high school, and the book cuts you off at the end of their undergrad. And this was absolutely incredible. I mean, it talks about like it sort of has a conversation on like the difference between romantic love versus platonic love. What does that mean? What does that look like for different people? It talks about mental illness and trauma and how that affects a person. You know, who Mary Ann and Connell are from the beginning are not who they are at the end. I think it's a book that's best read twice, back to back. When I finished this, I went back and I read like a quarter of the book again until like I just couldn't take it. I was like, no, I'm heartbroken. I hate my life. I'm going to think about this forever. Sally Rooney, you ruined my life. Then I have some titles here that I don't physically own, but I want to bring them up. Finna by Nate Marshall. It's a poetry collection. Absolutely stunning. One of my favorite poetry collections. In Infinitum, an Afrofuturist tale by Tim Fields. Incredible. It's about a man who is cursed by a lover of his for abandoning her, and she gives him the curse of like living forever. And so you see how he was like born in, I don't know, like the 1200s or something. You know, he even ends up like immigrating to the US and fighting in the Civil War, fighting in the Civil Rights Movement, living today, present day, moving into the future, when we eventually, you know, migrate to other planets and like fighting aliens. And it's such, first off, such a stunning graphic novel. Gorgeous work. Gorgeous work. And the philosophies that he takes along with creating it are really wonderful. And he writes in the introduction of it, he's like, you know, I'm the first man to put a black man in space. Not true. Alec, Childhood's End. Who is that by? Something C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke? Is it Arthur C. Clarke? Childhood's End. He put a black man in space. He's a white man who put a black man in space, but he put a black man in space. But anyways, you know, and there are, you know, comic book characters that have gone to space, but it's a graphic novel, so I'm gonna let him take credit for it. But yeah, he's not the first person to put a black man in space. But you know what, there aren't, I mean, think about how many like what is it, I always forget, Afrofuturist tales there are. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, no, I fucks with him. Definitely recommend that. Money Shot by Tim Seeley. That is about, it's a comic book series about the government taking funding away from, they take funding away from scientists. And so this handful of scientists are like, what if we, and like the thing that's selling the most, is a really big market for it, is porn. This like fetishized porn, just like all types of different fetishes. And so one of the girls is like, what if we just like make porn? Like let's make porn, let's do it. And that's how we'll get the funding for our research. And so they end up, how the whole series is supposed to go is like they end up traveling to different planets, and they end up like saving people. And ultimately, in that process of like saving people and like working on that planet or whatever, they end up having like, they end up fucking aliens and having orgies and selling that pornography to fund their research. And I loved it. I know some people might think it's distasteful, but like, if you're reading, you know, smutty fiction and stuff, maybe this is a comic book series you might really enjoy, because I think it's really great. There was like a threesome in the first volume with a woman with so many tentacles. It's not for everyone. Oh! No, last book, Know My Name by Chanel Miller. That was absolutely perfect. I listened to the audiobook. I suggest you do the same. I think it's the Brock Turner case, I forget. But yeah, that case, I think that happened when I was maybe a sophomore in high school. And I remember watching it on TV. And I remember being updated on it, and my family and I talking about it. So finally being able to put a name and a face to it, and hearing her story after all these years, it gives me goosebumps. It really does. But yeah, that's it. If you stuck around for the whole thing, you're crazy. That's all I'm saying. Okay, that's it. Bye.